Good evening, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to News in Focus. My name is Faraz Patel. We'd like to thank you, the viewer, for staying with us on Hilaal TV, DSTV channel 347. And of course, in South Africa, we're still, celebrating the class of 2025, still having these conversations. And of course, this was the start of the new schooling year. So all the best to the parents and all the best to the little ones, the older ones, of course, who are attending school. May this be a successful year for you. Now, let's go to, of course, what we saw with the class of 2025. And the Independent Examinations Board had announced a 98.31% pass rate for last year, with nearly 9 out of 10 candidates qualifying for degree study. Now, of course, there are two aspects to this, or two sides of the coins to this. From the supporter side, they would see it as evidence of consistency, rigor, and credibility. But on the other side, with the critics, they would argue that such outcomes reflect deeper structural advantages within the independent schooling sector, and this would risk entrenching a two-tier education system. Joining me now to unpack this, I'd like to welcome the CEO of the Independent Examinations Board, Confidence Dikgole. Confidence, absolute pleasure having you on. First of all, congratulations to you and, of course, your organization on the stellar work that is done. We thank you so much for joining us.
Good afternoon, Faraz, and thank you so much for having us. It really is a pleasure and an honor to be here. Thank you.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. I think, Confidence, I want to start off, of course, with this figure of 98.31%. I guess, what does the talk about in terms of the state of independent education within South Africa right now?
Yeah, the state of independent education is that the sector is really thriving. I think there's two things to this. So in terms of independent schools in South Africa, what we are seeing lately is a slight decrease in the number of new schools, new independent schools. And this has to do with the state of the economy in the country that has really affected everyone. The other thing is that there's been 1, 2, or 3 independent schools that have had to shut down, and purely due to financial circumstances. Again, it's linked to the economy that is really struggling in South Africa. But looking at education and performance examination-wise, the sector is doing extremely well, I must say. Hey, we continue to notice upward trajectories every year in terms of performance where independent schools are concerned. And it must also be remembered that when it comes to exams, independent schools have an option of whichever assessment body they want to write the NSC exam of. So there's those that write with us, the IEB, and there are those that would then choose to write with the public NSC exam. And whether they're writing with the IEB or with the public system, they really are doing exceptionally well.
Confidence, 9 out of 10 of the IEB candidates have qualified for a degree study. And I guess both you and I will agree that the more South Africans we have going to university, the better in terms of the significance that they would play in the economy in the future. I guess the question is, how significant is that figure in the broader national education context?
It's really significant. The fact that for the IEB, its bachelor pass rate was at 89.12 in the 2025 class of 2025, which basically means that 89% of the cohort that wrote the IEB NSC exam will be able to access degree studies at universities of choice. And of course, as I always underscore this by saying, barring the different university faculty admission requirements, but those learners will be able to access degree studies, not only in South Africa, internationally as well. And if you look at what schools have been sort of showcasing now, there's a number of candidates that have been admitted to international universities, including the the Ivy League institutions as well. So this really bodes well for the economy, for the success of these candidates, because they will go study, come back and contribute to the economy. Of course, if jobs are there, or they will create jobs. But really, what it means is that the sector is really doing very well.
Confidence, there's been a sort of a marginal dip, and of course it's not a significant one. We'll be talking about massive figures there in terms of the overall and bachelor's pass rates, say maybe compared to 2024 or even the year before. I guess for parents out there, is this a cause for concern, or is this just one of those years where there was a dip, and we probably have to see a trend occurring maybe in 2 or 3 years to see a sort of lowering of the bachelor pass rates?
That's a very good question, hey, for us. And the long and short answer is that no, parents should not be concerned at all. We're not concerned at the IB. We're not worried, and I'll tell you why. So let me start with the bachelor pass rate, which for 2025 was 89.12, and so it kind of, there was a dip there if you compare that with 2024. But if you compare with 2023, it's a much higher pass rate than 2023. I just don't have the figure here in front of me, but but I can get that for you.
Sure,
but,
no problem.
Yeah. So in 2024, the bachelor pass rate was 89.37. Okay. And in 2023, it was much higher than that. Now, concerning the overall pass rate, which, as I said, this year is 98.31 compared to 98.47 of 2024 and 98.46 of 2023. Can you see how steady, stable the overall pass rate is? Now, in 2025, we observed that decline, not even a decline, a very slight decrease. And here's what happened. The IEB is growing, and it's growing significantly so. And as we grow, we should expect those fluctuations in overall performance. This is a known international phenomenon in assessment systems. When you expand and you grow the cohort, and particularly bearing in mind that this is a very mixed cohort. It's not that stable cohort that the IEB has established through time. In the last 3 years, we've had growth of 15% in terms of candidate cohort, and this applies to schools that joined the IEB. 2023 alone, we had 17 new schools joining the IEB and writing the NSC for the first time, and 2024, we had 9 new schools, and 2025, again, 9 new schools. Now, in the mix of the new schools, there's online schools that are joining us as well. So it's no longer just a brick and mortar school cohort that we have. And of course, we are bound to see these fluctuations happening. The cohort is finding its feet. Things will settle down. But this does by no means imply anything about the standard of the IEB exam. The standard remains rigorous, it remains steady, and hence we're seeing the results that we see. Otherwise, it could have been worse, if it were not that the standard is stable and rigorous as it should be.
One final question before we go to the break conference, and of course we will continue this conversation after. When we look at the socio-economic supposed trajectory of South Africa, I think both you and I can agree that learners from IEB consistently outperform national, and the averages and the percentage is there for all to see. Is it simply as just saying that it's the socio-economic sort of advantage that IEB learners have? Because I attended on Monday the announcement of the results with Basic Education Minister Siviwe Gwarube, and one of the supposed talking points that she's mentioned is that South Africa needs to find a way of having equal education. I wanted to get your take on this, Confidence.
And I think we need to unpack equal education. What really do we mean by equal education? There has been people who've been arguing and positing that perhaps we need a single exam system in the country. And I think what the minister is not saying is she's not supporting a single exam system, but she acknowledges that there are challenges within the education system. And I think it's very crucial that we separate the two issues. I've been saying to people that have been saying we need a unified exam system, I've been saying we will never be able to correct the ills of the education system through a single exam system. Exam will not be able to do that, but it's what happens in the classroom. And so the minister is right. We need to fix what is happening in the classrooms. And maybe I need to also add and say that whatever it is that needs to be fixed where education is concerned in the classroom is not only where public schools are concerned. I always say, there's good public schools, there's good independent schools, and there's bad independent schools, and there's bad public schools. So across the board, there's a need to look into independent, rather education in South Africa, and try and address the challenges that are there. And I can tell you, from listening to the minister, I was also there on Monday. And listening to her, I think the DBE has a very solid plan in place of how they're going to do that. So I just wanted to underscore this by saying that, yes, the education system needs to be fixed. The quality of teaching and learning needs to be improved, because for the exam results to be what they are, it's about the teacher that stands in front of the classroom, working together with parents and the learners. It's that triangle working together to get the results improved.
After the break, I continue my conversation with a confidence at Dikgole. Do stay tuned to News in Focus. I'll be back after this break. Welcome back to News in Focus. I'm in conversation with the CEO of the Independent Examinations Board, Confidence Dikgole. Again, thank you so much for staying with us, Confidence. Confidence, you know what was interesting, and I'm sure you were there also on Monday. The sort of, and we can obviously use the difference of public schools and of course those of IEB. But what was so heartwarming, Sianda Nkuna, and of course you were there to witness it, this boy from Inkomazi High School in Mpumalanga getting, 100% for mathematics. And I guess it just shows that the public schools itself, there's some good in there. And there's something that you mentioned interesting before we went to the break, that public schools itself, despite what maybe the assertion is that a lot of it may not be in the best interest of the students, or the environment around it may not be the best, when you look at somebody like Sianda Nkuna, it just shows that there's good within the public school systems. And I guess that's worth celebrating, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. You're 100% right. I'm actually reminded by what the former Minister of Basic Education once said, Minister Angie Motshekga. She said she had visited some of the schools. I think it was in Limpopo or Mpumalanga. And this particular school that would be classified as a sort of under-resourced school, where you would not expect to get, good results coming out of it. But what she interviewed the teachers there, and the teachers were saying, we're able to get the results because we look at the curriculum and we don't teach to the curriculum, but we make sure that we teach learners to be able to understand, interpret, analyze, and really internalize what we're teaching them. So it's really about the teacher and what they can do with the curriculum. I'm a teacher by profession, and I can tell you, when I started teaching as a very young teacher, I used to teach to the textbook, and I regret that, where you come into the classroom and you literally read the textbook out to the learners. You don't internalize it, you don't interpret it, analyze it, such that learners can understand and have deep understanding of content that they're being taught. And that's where therein lies the difference with teaching. And really, so there are public schools that have teachers that are able to do that, and hence the results we saw with the young gentleman that you're referring to.
And of course, what's great here is that you've got Sianda Nkuna, who comes from a public school. You've got Abigail Koch, of course, comes from York High School. Of course, two completely different schools, and yet both of them were able to achieve such great marks. So that, I think, really speaks of, you know, how education in the country, I think, and I'm sure you'd agree with me, this upward trajectory that is happening there. Confidence within the IEB system, and I want to come back there. I mean, 280 learners are recognized for outstanding and commendable achievement. The learner excellence within the IEB system, what would you say you would attribute it to?
To the teacher, definitely to the teacher. To the teacher who's able to do exactly what I've just said now. To the learner as well, who from the very word go shows determination and resilience, and is able to work with the teacher, and of course with support from home as well. If these learners do not have support from home, it really has a negative impact on their studying and their performance in school. And so that triangle that I referred to earlier on is very crucial for learners to be able to thrive within the education system and to do well, like the learners that we're seeing here. But in addition to that, the IEB provides such intensive support to schools. We have what we call sort of communities of practice, where teachers get together and they share best practices, and it's under controlled sort of, you know, situation, for lack of a better word, where they are guided in terms of the engagements that they have. And in addition to that, from the IEB side, we have what we call sort of professional learning group, same thing, where we, at the beginning of the year, we do what is called subject by subject analysis, and we call teachers together and we do that analysis. Our assessment specialists are brilliant in doing that, as well as our examiners, our chief examiners, our internal moderator, our panel, so to speak. And so they unpack every subject to in detail in terms of performance in every single item, to see how learners performed, and that is what then schools are able to use as a diagnostic tool that helps them to sort of inform teaching and learning in the classroom. So that support is very crucial. And as I've been saying in other interviews, that we also have workshops that we conduct at the IEB. They're very specific, very detailed workshops on how to teach mathematics, how on sort of building capacity in terms of assessment strategies, assessment principles, what is good assessment, and so on and so forth. There's a range of workshops that we offer. That really helps in terms of supporting educators for them to be able to support learners in the classroom.
One of those assessments, artificial intelligence, the learners probably last year, the year before, would have been using artificial intelligence to really assist them in the work that they do. How is the IEB monitoring this, given that there's still a lot of sort of governance issues that are there in terms of AI?
So what we did is, as soon as AI started taking traction, and schools were sort of reaching out to say, what do we do? How do we handle this? Because learners, whether we like it or not, learners will use AI to support them. Okay, so we had several engagements with schools, meetings, and so on and so forth. And what came out of all that was a guideline document. And that was sent to schools. And the guideline document there's a general guideline document, but we also have those guideline documents per subject, because there are those nuances that we've got to sort of have a clear understanding of in terms of how AI influences a particular subject and learning in a particular subject. So we do encourage learners to use AI. Look, AI is not an enemy, and it's not something that we should be afraid of or frown upon. But as long as there is clear guidance, and also emphasis placed on the fact that learners should not rely heavily on AI. I think it is understood that AI hallucinates. I mean, I've personally caught it out on several occasions where I've said, this is not accurate what
Yeah.
you said telling me now. So it's about helping learners to be able to understand that and be able to take whatever information they're getting from AI and be able to do their own analysis, interpretation, and have a very good understanding of whatever information they're getting. The thing is, when they sit the final exam, they will not have AI to support them.
Yeah.
So now for this class of 2025 to have done so well, bearing in mind that there was no AI supporting them. The AI may have supported their teaching and learning, but they were on their own when they wrote the exams,
Yeah.
and they did so
Yeah,
well.
well, I don't
really
think
shows
you can use AI for exams because that would be outright cheating. So I mean, you can
that's
definitely
it.
expel that from that side. Confidence. One final question before we close off this interview. Minister Siviwe Gwarube had mentioned that the 30% mark should not be the sort of standard or the benchmark for matric students. I wanted to get the IEB's response to that because I know this has been heavily politicized in terms of the 30% mark. I don't want to get into that. I just wanted to get the IEB's response to the comments that were made by Minister Gwarube on Monday night.
I support her 100% for us. I do. And I think it's very reckless and irresponsible of people to be, going on with such comments because in actual fact, that's far from the truth, eh? And I think the minister put it so well to say that it's not every child who aspires to be a doctor or a lawyer or and so that child just needs to pass the NSC and go into whatever it is that they want to go into. Some of them can access the world of work with just the NSC. And so passes are categorized. So there is an NSC pass and there is a pass if you want to for higher certificate, diploma and bachelor. I always say when I talk to matric learners, if you want to go to university, don't aim for the NSC pass. Aim for the bachelor pass and much, much more. If you're going to aim for the 50% pass in 4 subjects and 40% in 3, you will not be accepted at any university because then you're competing with candidates that come with 100% in mathematics or 90% or 80% in mathematics. So aim high. So there's nothing about a 30% pass being a pass for matric. There's nothing like that. Even for just the NSC, it's 40% in your languages and 30% in some subjects. So it's got to be understood in that context, really. So I do support what she was saying.
Confidence Dikgole, absolute pleasure having you on. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. Thank you for us. Thank you. And all the best for the rest of the year.
No, same to you also. Thank you so much. That's Confidence Dikgole. She is the CEO of the Independent Examinations Board. After the break, we'll be discussing South Africa, President Ramaphosa's trip to the United Arab Emirates. There's a lot of economic, but mostly geopolitical aspects with regards to this, especially what is happening in the Middle East. I'll be speaking to Dr. Kingsley Makubela after the break.